Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the finale episode of season 2 of This Girl Shoots. My name is Brianna Lisa, professional portrait photographer based here in the Tampa Bay area, and we have a wedding-based episode today. And you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Jen from Jenn Elle Photo. I'm a wedding photographer, branding photographer in Tampa.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Josh. I'm a wedding filmmaker. I'm based here in Tampa.
Nice. Okay. So I'd like to get a little bit of a sense of your guys' background. So how long have you guys been doing weddings, and what made you kind of start, like what piqued your interest in doing weddings in the first place?
So I impulsively bought a camera at Best Buy, took out a credit card, and spent way too much money on a whim, on an impulse, having zero plan. And then my friends started asking me to take photos. And actually the first wedding I photographed was my sister's best friend's wedding. And I flew up to Minnesota to attend the wedding, and her photographer was a very amateur photographer. And her sister ended up passing away prior to the wedding. Aww. So my sister's friend was like, "Hey, I need a photographer, 911. And I was like, "Well, I have a camera and I'm not a photographer." And she said, "That's okay. Can I throw you $400 and you can shoot my wedding?" I said, "Sure." And if I showed you those photos today, you would never believe I took them.
Oh my goodness.
But that was my first experience. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed. One of the bridesmaids there were like, "Those photos were beautiful." And then she hired me for her wedding, and I charged more, and then somebody else hired me, and it just kind of snowballed naturally that way.
Oh
so
gosh,
it was
I
never
love
a plan,
that.
just kind of fell into my lap.
Love that. Those are literally like the best ways to start. Just like natural, not really knowing what to expect, not like super planned out, because like beautiful things happen that way when they're not planned.
Yeah, it was organic.
Yes, I love that. And you?
For me, it's a similar story. I bought a camera at Best Buy and spent way too much money.
Hey.
Yep. And then my almost like kind of like a brother-in-law, he went to school for photography. And he kind of showed me the ropes of how to use the camera and everything like that. And he eventually invited me to do a wedding with him. So I started off as a second shooter with him. Absolutely loved that. So I shot wedding photos for quite a while, and then eventually made the transition into wedding films. And I've been loving that ever since. I love the editing process. The shooting on the day of is a little hectic for video, but I still love the process of it.
Nice. Would you say you're more of a videographer or a photographer when it comes to your personal life based on your...
Definitely, like my online presence is more photographer. I do a lot more fashion and portrait stuff. But anything video that I do is wedding. So I like to do I like to tell the story of a wedding day from start to finish. So I do enjoy that, but I would say the biggest thing I'm known for is my portrait photography.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people say that video is a lot harder than photography. Would you guys actually agree with that, or not really?
I would agree with that. I would not wish that job upon myself. Personally, I think Josh feels a little differently.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well,
Josh.
I mean, I still love but it is a pain in the butt. I will say that, because the day of, I'm bringing in suitcase after suitcase of gear, lighting, things like that. And then the editing process can take a little bit longer, but I very much like editing video more than I like editing photo, because it's the culling process and just looking at the same photo that are just slightly different. Like it numbs the mind.
True.
Like
True.
Or it's beautiful and you get into a rhythm and
Yes.
you're able to do that. And the dynamic style of edit that you need to be everywhere for editing video. So I think it's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
Because I would say the opposite. I would much rather edit photo than video.
Yes. I'd say I'm getting into video right now, but I'd say for photography, I'm like more naturally more inclined towards photography, and I've only done one wedding, but I wasn't the main photographer. I was actually not the second shooter, but the third shooter for 8 hours. And I was like, do I want to be a wedding photographer? I do, but right now I'm kind of on the route of like second shooter, third shooter before I just go, especially since I now have 2 cameras. And that was one of the reasons why it was holding me back from wedding photography. I'm just like, I do not want to go in a wedding knowing that I only have 1 camera, and if that fails, then screw me, right? Especially since the the main photographer at the wedding I was at, he had like 3 cameras. Like he was doing the videographer job, the photographer job, the second shooting with his camera with all the men, and me and the second shooter all with the girls and the brides and the bridesmaids and stuff like that. But it was really stressful, and I'm just like, I wonder how stressed I would be. I wasn't even the main photographer. I was the third person that they needed me, but I was, yeah.
Well, I'll say, like, when the first time you do a wedding, it is a scary thing because that's what they get for the day. Like, if you mess something up on that day, like, there's no way in going back and getting that. And that does stress a lot of photographers and videographers out. But that's why you start off as like a third or second shooter. Get with somebody who knows that as the first, they're going to be able to capture everything and get everything they need. And you're there kind of, shadowing them and learning. And you can practice what you're trying to do for a wedding day, like with the guys, or usually second shooters are with the guys. I'll say that, like, and it's the main photographer, videographer that's with the brides, because those are the most important shots. Like, it's all about the bride that day. I don't think I've ever run into it where the guys, I'm like, no, it's about me today.
Right. Yeah, I've never heard of that in my life.
I've had one of those.
Oh,
really?
Right.
Oh my gosh, tell us about that experience.
It was great. The groom was the one that planned most of the wedding, styled most of the wedding. They looked phenomenal.
Oh my goodness.
They were sneaker people.
Oh, okay.
So the guy just kind of planned it all, and he had like shots in mind. He was the one that I was corresponding more with, and.
Wow, that's usually like unheard of these days.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that, like ever.
The only time I've ever had that happen was, during a gay wedding. Like,
okay.
That's it. Like, not when it's a groom and a bride, but yeah, that was the only time I've ever had that happen.
Right. Okay, the silence. What was the first hurdle that you guys came across during the journey of becoming a wedding photographer and a videographer? Like, what was like the hardest step to actually get into doing it full time?
I would say for me, the hardest step to being a wedding photographer full time was moving out of my own way, as far as having the confidence to do it. It is a little bit scary because somebody is putting their entire day and all of their memories, especially if they don't hire a videographer, which a lot of times they don't. Yeah, and when they don't, it is a lot of pressure, and not caving under that pressure, but rather alchemizing it and turning it into like a fuel for you to perform and give them all of those moments. Having that confidence, I think, was my biggest hurdle. And I also think that that's my biggest asset now, as far as being a wedding photographer, is having the confidence. And I think that I portray that to my clients in different ways. I make sure to, like, the way that I show up on social media and the way that I represent my brand. I feel like a lot of people who hire me almost already know what they're going to get, not even through photos, but just through personality. So, for example, I showed up here today with very minimal makeup. I have no skin covering, no nothing. But my brand is very much like, I'm not going to Photoshop your body. Like, the thing that everybody says is, that camera must be so great. Can you make me look 20 pounds thinner? And my response to that is always, no, but you're going to look fantastic anyway, because we're going to love our bodies and we're going to practice loving ourselves.
Love that.
And I'm going to give you the best angles, the best composition. I'm going to make you look amazing, and you're going to have to love yourself also.
Yes, for sure.
So I just kind of try to embody that with my brand, but I had to have the confidence to do that. And so my biggest hurdle was embodying the energy that I want people to bring on wedding day, because I cannot curate shots.
Exactly.
I can't force moments. I can't force happiness. I can't force tears, but I can create space for those moments to happen.
Yes.
So figuring out how to create that moment and have the confidence to say, hey guys, I didn't quite get that. Can we run this back and try this again?
Right. That can be very scary, because you're going to be like, oh, well, who we hired?
Well, yeah, because they're like, you don't want them to feel like you've messed something up.
Exactly.
But it doesn't matter. You've got to be like, if we want to get the shot, let's get the shot. If we have to do it twice.
You have to take charge, especially since, like, in our field, like, we have to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
If you're just like passive, something completely off just happened and you're not going to say anything, you're just going to be like, oh, I'll just figure it out later. I
Well,
won't tell them.
yeah, as long as
It's
you're not
them.
acting like, oh my God, why did I just do that? Da, da, da.
Right.
You just go into it like, oh, hey, let's do that again real quick.
Exactly. Like you do not want them to be like, oh my gosh, they're not confident. They don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who did we just hire?
And I've come up with ways to do that, like just owning it and saying, hey guys, this shot is amazing and I'm not completely sure I got that, but I want to make sure I can put that in your gallery. So can you just stay there another moment? Or for example, if it's what I won't do is if there's a natural moment that happened, which it just depends on what your personal brand is. My personal brand is just like natural, unposed, which is weird though, because I still pose, but I can get into how I do that and kind of curate moments at the same time, because you can do both.
For sure.
But just kind of stating that not I messed up, but that was so beautiful and so precious that I can see that this is going to be a gem in your gallery. I'm going to make sure that I nail this shot for you because it's that strong. And that is how you bring the confidence in. You messed it up, but you don't have to say, hey, I messed up. And also just stating the fact that you're human.
Right.
Like I'm a human being. I'm a creative, like we're
Right.
creative
You're not
people.
some robot
You're
just
not-
to take shots, press a button.
There are some when like I've run into where the all-inclusive wedding venues where they have a photographer on deck at that venue and they have their like set shots that they want to get and they're the same shot every single time.
Right.
And that I feel like the bride and groom don't really see it as I do,
Right.
where you're like, they're doing the same shots every single wedding and there's just no oomph behind it. Basically, there's no love behind it. And you're just going through they're just going through the motions when it's an all inclusive. That's a personal thing with me. I'm like all inclusive places just, I don't know. They rub me the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's what happens when you go for quantity
Over
versus
quality.
quality.
Yep.
A wedding photographer that does, I don't even know what number. For me, the number would probably be way lower. But if I did like 40 weddings a year, I would not be able to give my couples the energy that I am able to give them.
Exactly.
And then in turn, give them the gallery that has the tiny moments that I'm able to see because I have the energy to witness and observe everything that's happening.
Right. Exactly. And what type of hurdles did you go through while you were
for me
going through the process?
at first of like trying to get into the wedding industry, like I said, I had like my brother-in-law Shannon that helped me do my first wedding. Then you have like the friend that you do their first wedding. Same thing with me. You do not want to go back and look at those photos. Oh
Yeah,
my God. Like I feel so, and she was like,
feel awful,
she's
yes.
such a close personal friend. Jenn Elle, if you ever see this, I'm so sorry. Like,
Amy, I'm sorry.
like,
Shout out to you guys.
yeah, like,
And thank you.
yes, thank you for giving me that first shot. It was like a $400 wedding. But you look back at it and you're like, oh God, but it's that one that gets you in the door. But after that, the biggest hurdle is getting your first one from people you don't know.
For sure.
Like that is always the big hurdle. Once you get past that, you kind of, you're like, okay, got that one
Right,
in.
that's like the
We can,
hill.
yeah, you just gotta, and then it's just going from there. But you got to get that first one in. Sometimes it can be scary because everybody, I know even like as people who've done it for years, sometimes we get imposter syndrome. Like that's a real thing. Like I've been
Every
doing
wedding, every single wedding, I get imposter syndrome. Every single one, still to this day.
Yeah, it's not a thing that, but as long as you push past that, like, because once I'm in the moment at a wedding, like I'm in my element, like it's time to go. I can do my thing, but like on the drive to the wedding, sometimes
Right,
I'm like,
nothing else matters.
Yeah, like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to mess it up. I'm not going to miss any moments. It's going to be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you
That's
almost
exactly
psych
what it
yourself
is.
out and you get there and you're like, I obviously know how to do
like
this.
I got this.
Right.
This is because after you've done so many, like
It's muscle memory.
yeah, you know the
Exactly.
beats of a wedding. Like no matter like, yeah, there's different like religious aspects of a wedding that can happen that you're not used to, but most weddings kind of move the same way and you can adapt and things like that. But most weddings are typically the same and you just, I don't want to say going through the motions because that's what we were just talking about. You don't want to do, but
you can anticipate the next shot because you know what is coming next.
Exactly.
So your
You-
mind can think ahead.
you know the
can prepare.
cues to look for and things like that. Yeah. But
Right.
that's the biggest hurdle is like getting your first wedding from people you don't know. And then
Right.
it kind of snowballs after that.
Right. That's kind of how I feel with regular shoots because I've only done one wedding as a third shooter and I'm still in the car like, oh my gosh, I'm just nervous how it's going to go. And I'm just like, it's a regular shoot. This can be way more complicated than it is. And I do feel the imposter syndrome sometimes. But I was actually curious how you guys actually won over your first like real client, like a stranger that you didn't know. Well, technically a couple that you didn't know. Like, what was that conversation? Did you have like some kind of like client call or like a client meeting to actually discuss goals of like what they actually want out of the wedding and if you're actually the right photographer or not? Like vetting. Like, how'd the vetting process go for you guys?
Well, for me, like my first one that I got, and this is big in the industry, like this is how you get, I feel like you get the most weddings. It's not from like advertising and things like it, word of mouth.
Right.
From your friends, from your networking. That's how you do it. And that's honestly the biggest way to get your first one is networking. Talk with your family, talk with your friends, be annoying as hell. Like if you want to turn this into your career, hound them. Like, who do you know that's getting married? Who do you know that needs this? Who do you know that needs that? Like if they should be supporting that, like, okay, let me reach out to this person, to that person. And it can bring a lot of word of mouth is everything in my mind for any kind of creative aspect.
For sure. I definitely agree. That's me with maternities. I'm trying to get into more maternities. So I'm telling people, hey, if there's someone that you know that's like far along, bring them to me. I'm your girl. Yep. I'm their girl.
Yeah. And you've got to push at it. Like, it's not something like, well, if you know somebody, can you send like, no, like,
right. You can't be passive.
Yeah. You can't be passive on it. Like, right. I'm very much like, especially like, I've been out here in Florida for like a year. I don't have a huge networking group out here, but the people I do know, like, come on, send some people my way. Like, like, let's get this going. Like, always on people to be like, and show them your work, things like that. And it brings people your way.
Exactly. So what has been the craziest wedding horror story you guys have had, or the most difficult wedding clients, couples, family members, all of it?
I am an awful person to ask that because I have never had a bad couple. I can't say I've ever had a nightmare couple or a couple that I didn't vibe with. I've also never had a negative experience with a family member. And I think my vetting process is just really good. And I've done a good job at niching down and just being really human and really myself, that I just set myself up to not encounter certain things. For example, the way that I dress on a wedding day is very intentional. When I'm dressing in my same brand colors.
All black?
Yeah.
No.
I know a lot of people in the industry, they're like all black all the time. Like this, what I'm wearing is like olive pants and like a white bun up. This is what I would wear to a wedding.
Right.
Like okay. The all black thing, I'll do it sometimes, but it's not my thing.
Right.
Yeah. My go-to, it depends on my mood, honestly. It depends on how do I wake up? I've worn like long floor length dresses, button down dresses to weddings. I have worn all black before. I've kind of just felt around to how I feel. And what I've come up with is I want to dress in my same brand colors because the more consistent you are, the more people know what to expect, the more trust you build.
Exactly.
The safer people feel. And when people feel safe, they'll open to you. And what the opening looks like just means they're laughing in front of you or they're crying in front of, like they're allowing the moment to happen and not like not hiding behind not hiding in front of the camera, which is a human tendency. But I will dress not in all black because I am a vendor at your wedding, but I'm not a vendor. I am a human being.
Exactly.
I am a human being. I am here to connect with you. I am here to witness your entire wedding day from a third eye point of view. And I want you to hire me so that I can be that human. And I can't do that if you're treating me like a worker. One of my favorite things during weddings is to have a seat, an actual seat at the reception.
Right.
With family.
Outside like a dog.
Yeah. And like, and I get that. Like, there's no shame in that. I understand why people do that. And it's not really about how I feel because I'll eat wherever. I don't care.
Right.
But it's more so about if I'm able to be a part of the party, I can photograph the part. I can be like, okay, what are the people at the table doing? This grandma's talking to that grandma. Oh, this is an important shot here. Or what are they touching? Like if I'm sitting at a table and you're grabbing a glass, I could take a close-up of that. All of that is storytelling. Nobody wants to be photographed eating, but I need to document the dinner in some sort of way. So I can photograph like hands across the table or like an overhead shot of the plates and just hands. But or even if I'm sitting at a table, I can photograph the speeches and things from that point of view. I don't know. There's just a different element when you are a part of the people's family. Another thing that I do is that when I get to a wedding, and this is something that I know not everyone has the capacity to do. I have the brain capacity to do this. But the first thing I do is I don't make myself small. I say, hi guys, I'm Jen. I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to be hanging out with you guys all day long. And since we're going to be buddies all day long, I'm going to learn each and every one of your names. But I can't learn them all at the same time. So what's your name and what's your name?
I'm so bad at names.
Same.
Exactly. But like, I'm not, so I can alchemize that.
There was, a few weddings ago, the groom and the best man looked so much alike that I got the names wrong, switched up with. I started shooting the groom prep photos with the first, like the best man.
The best man.
I'm like, oh God. I was like, and then the groom comes in. He's like, oh, don't worry. It happens all the time. I'm like, thanks.
Were they siblings?
No, but they look so much alike. It was, we had a good laugh about it. Like, as long as you're having fun with it, you're fine with it. But I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that was a couple that I hadn't met face to face yet. Like, it was just kind of like a quick add-on last minute kind of wedding that got added on, which I take a lot of for some reason. I don't know why I get a lot of last minute stuff.
Right.
As a videographer, because people add video on at the last
end.
moment. Yeah.
It's like they're gonna regret this, and so all
Right.
right, I'll
Like,
pull the trigger now.
Right. It's like they don't think about
Yeah.
it. Then just like, oh, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Might as well. I mean, in this wedding, you can't really repeat it
Right.
unless you get married to someone else, but then again, it's not the same.
And that's not usually the plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What about you? What has been your craziest horror client experience?
I've had a
Anything
few.
at wedding?
There's one, so it's not so much, I mean, the couples were kind of crazy. We'll get in that, but it was one venue. I had one venue that back-to-back weddings at it, and we had the same issue at both. So the first one, the groom he was a party boy, and he'd been drinking throughout the day, like throwing him back. Like during the couple photos, you could see it in his face. Just going before like 20 minutes before the ceremony, they had to induce vomiting on him to get it out of his system like the bride is crying. Like, it was a disaster. Yeah. Like the night went on.
Okay.
But yeah.
Good at least.
Yeah. But then the next wedding I did there, same issue, but it was the couple themselves. Like
They both got drunk?
They both got drunk. Like during the ceremony, like they're passing, like they didn't have a ring bearer. They had a beer bearer. They're just handing beers out to everybody.
Interesting.
Like they were
That's
just,
kinda cool. I like it.
like it's a cool thing. But they got so hammered. And during the reception, like the bride just was going nuts. She had to be escorted out at the end of the night by the venue. They're like, you need to go.
At her
like,
own wedding.
At her own wedding. They had
Oh
to
my
kick her out of
gosh.
the building because she was so plastered. Like,
Dang.
yeah. So those are probably like my two top ones that I'm just like, that was a sight to behold.
Right.
Like-
Did you get pictures of them escorting her out? Did you videotape it?
No, it was towards the end of the night. You're kind of moving around and then you just kind of see it. And I'm not going to be like, here's a camera in her face and stuff
Imagine.
The first wedding I had out here in Florida, it was, I can't remember, but it was a buddy from mine from Colorado. I think he was, I was just second shooting with him that day. He just needed some help that day for video. But during the reception, the bride, I don't know, like they were going out after, like they were going to go hit a bar and stuff like that. And the bride was just like, are you coming with, like, I'm just like,
To you?
yes.
Oh my
I'm like-
gosh. Okay.
I'm like, dude, get your girl, like to the videographer, because he's like friends with her. I'm like, dude, I'm like, Austin, get her out of here.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the top ones that come to mind. I'm just like, that could have gone better.
Okay. Before we run out of time, I'm actually very curious what your guys' advice is for people who want to get into wedding photography and who want to make it their full-time job. Wedding photography, wedding videography, something in that realm. What would you say to them?
Practice, like try and get in as a second shooter. Like that's the biggest thing, is having that experience of a wedding day. Sometimes it's not about like, you can get technically good at taking photos outside of weddings, but it's the experience of a wedding day that you want. That's what a lot of people are looking for. You've got to get past that hump for me. So there are like Facebook groups out there for like second shooting. You can show people some of your work and offer your services through some of these second shooter Facebook groups, and people will hire you on, and then you can go out there and get your experience that way.
That's good.
That's a good way to kind of get into the industry for people that are looking for a way in.
That's good. And your take?
My advice would be to remember that people only give the advice that they wish that they had taken. So it's
For
a projection of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to all the advice and take it. Don't take all of it to heart. Take all of it with a grain of salt and choose what to listen to. So my projection and the advice that I would give is, number one, shoot anything and everything. Don't say no in the beginning. And the purpose in the beginning is not to make money, but it's to find your specific style, your specific niche. And you can choose your niche. Like in the beginning, I chose my niche, and it was weddings. And it's like, that's not specific enough. And after shooting so often, you try to figure out like, what are the patterns? Figure out what you are really good at. When people compliment you after the photo shoot, what is it that they're complimenting? And have the confidence to ask, hey, what was your favorite part about the shoot? What do you think was phenomenal? And what do you think needs improvement? And I welcome any and all answers, because I can't grow without this kind of feedback. Thank you for helping me grow. And taking that feedback and then kind of running with it. The more you niche down, the more successful you're going to be. That is what worked for me. As soon as I was able to narrow it down, which for me, I'm constantly doing this. Like the brand is more in my head than it is out there, but it's someone out there because people are hiring me and they're saying it. They're like, Jenn, you're so confident. That's my brand, which to me is laughable, because I'm on the inside of myself being like, be confident, Jenn, be confident, Jenn, and nobody sees that part. But realizing that it's that's what makes people feel comfortable shooting with me, is that I'm projecting the version of you that I'm trying to get in front of my camera. Yeah. So my two recommendations would be, number one, shoot anything and everything, not about the money, make it about the experience, about your experience. And then number two would be to niche down as soon as possible.
Right. Very wise words, you guys. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. So go ahead and shout out your IGs.
Oh, sure. Mine is jenn.elle.photo. It's jenn.elle.photo.
Okay.
Mine's josh.edsted.photography. Once you get there, you can actually find, I've got my separate page, and it'll lead you to that, which is Edstet Media. So if you just look up my last name, Edstet, I've got like 12 pages. I don't know why.
Awesome.
I've got pages for like
because they all have a niche.
They do. They really do.
If you guys need a wedding, go ahead and book Jenn and Josh for your photo and video needs. Once again, my name is Brianna Lisa, your host. And make sure you check out the description for the info on the giveaway we're going to do for season 3 of This Girl Shoots. Once again, my name is Brianna, your host. Thank you so much for watching. See you next season.